Hi and welcome. I am so glad you joined us. Today I am with the one and only Susan Hughes, and we did an episode of Journeys into the Soul called Don't Forget Who You Are. It was filmed in Dublin and it was done with the amazing facilitator Triona Sheeran. I am so happy that I get a chance to talk with Susan. We're going to have a little catch up and find out how things are going and all of the good stuff. Susan, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, David. It's great to catch up with you. Really good.
Your episode was so powerful. I loved all of the things. It's a long session. I was able to kind of put together a synopsis of the things that I felt were super important, that personal power of don't forget who you are. But to get to that space, Trina has what is called an induction, where she gets you to kind of relax, get your thinking mind with the clipboard and the to-do list just to kind of calm down and relax. And so she's go down a tunnel and give you this idea of like you're in this floating ethereal space and she's slowly counting down and you're like, I want to run down the tunnel. Tell me about that experience. That was hilarious for me being the observer.
It is interesting because, over the years, even when I was learning and people were doing meditations, and now you go into the forest, but I'm already at the river that's beyond the forest. So mentally, I suppose, and I knew where I was going, and I really wanted to be there because I felt it. I wanted to be in this place where I am me. And the Trina was just taking too long. You know, it's just taking too long. And of course, it had to take that process. It had to go through that process because we have to get right down into that state of awareness that is needed. So that is impatience, I would label.
Well, I think we can all identify with that. That was funny. And so the most beautiful thing is when you get through that tunnel, you get back to this place and it's this ethereal space. And Trina says, "Well, where are you?" And you're like, "Oh, I'm home and I'm with my
Oh,
soulmate team." And oh my goodness, it was so amazing. Tell me about that space. You saw these Golden Globes, you saw your buddies. There was so much there. I didn't have enough time to give presence to everything. Maybe share some of that home space. You know, I believe we're spiritual beings having these human experiences. And when you go back to that in hypnotherapy, oh, what a reconnection. Share with us that.
let me run a parallel. You have someone in your life you love. You have someone in your life you love, and they totally accept you. Perhaps not a person, it could be your animal, because they totally accept us without condition. And that's what it felt like to be surrounded and embodied by this feeling. And it was ecstatically, emotionally beautiful. And I do, in my mind's eye, I can still feel it. I can feel Jane, who was my friend. I still remember. I felt that power and the warmth of it. And if I'm remembering correctly, there were five beings in this room and I was catching up with them and saying what I had done. And it was all very, very quick. It's not like our conversations here that could take time. It was instant. And there was a very powerful being, powerful. I mean, so if you were to say he was the king or the emperor, it's that power. And he was so benevolent and he was so loving. And we were just all part of this community. It's to know you are. I feel it's to know you are and that there's a valid reason for all the issues and confrontations and things in this life. I do have difficulty, I'm straying slightly. I do have difficulty with people saying, well, we chose that awful thing to happen. I have difficulty with that because, the parent who's lost a child, how can you tell them they've lost it? But it is that depth of understanding that is brought when we're in that space. It's very fulfilling, David. It's very fulfilling. And it certainly enlightened me and brightened me. And to be told, remember who you are, and this is what you do, and this is how you serve, was very humbling. It really was very humbling because I know people, when I work, people sense that I am confident. And while I work, I presume I am. But in general life, I'm not overly confident, because that's the human frailties. There's none of that in this space, none of that in this space. So I felt at home. I felt comfortable. I felt loved, part of a group. on my own. It was just a gamut of feelings and sensations. It was
Yeah.
wonderful.
I loved how you said we're sharing information. Like we go out, we have our human experiences, and then we come back. And at one point, you're like, it's like we sit at a table and we put a bottle of wine down in the middle, and we're like, all right, you tell me your story, I'll tell you mine. And we have these soul journeys where we share with one another. Tell me about that
Yeah.
sensation.
You know, when we're out with our buddies, I was out last night with my buddies, a catch up. We haven't seen each other since before Christmas, and we did have a glass of wine or two. So, catching up. And it was great because we were offloading. You'll never guess, but you know what I learned, and it is that kind of thing on a deeply spiritual reasoning. Now, it's not all holy in God. I'm not making this a religious thing, even though I have a religious belief. It was, look, we can do this better, you know. And this is how what I learned and how we can choose, like, tightening up that nut or getting the spanner and fixing, getting things tighter. And I'm going to say the word again, it's enlightening. So when I was out last night, I was enlightened by information I was given. It was brilliant. Is it going to change my life? No. However, in that process that I was in that spiritual aspect of it, it has changed me. It has changed me and changed my perspective and my views on things. Even though I'm quite open to that anyway, it was just kind of, I'm so pleased that Trina asked me to do it because I kept saying no. I kept saying no, and she said, please. And I went, oh, okay. And I'm really so glad and grateful that you did because it has changed my perspective on many, many things. It's not like I'm an unintelligent woman, even though I have done stupid things, but don't everybody? That's a part of the learning. It's like all that stuff we've learned, we only know this of it, and I got to have that of it. So it was beautiful. It really was. It was very relaxing. There was no tension. There was no urgency. There was no rushing. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trina's brilliant at the way she
Oh,
facilitates. And I was so impressed at the way that she got you into that space and you just went there. And one of the questions you had in your pre-session interview was there's this kind of deep sadness. And I don't know why, but there's this Hmm, I don't know, but sometimes I just get a little sad. And when you had that session, you're like, oh, I know what that's about. It's because I'm missing my home
yeah.
and, I want to go back to that space. I miss my soulmate Jane or whatever that energy was, that really that deep friendship. And I think you had some clarity at that time. Tell me, is there a follow-up, more information that you've received about that longing?
Well, I'm going to say I'm no longer sad. I will be sad if somebody passes. I don't have that. No, I don't have it. And I'm glad you said that because I'm really feeling into it and see, no, I don't have it. I mean, the knowledge I'm going to return there is enough for me to not be lonely for it. I think that's the best explanation I can give. Does it mean I'm going to run to it? No, it doesn't. I've a good 20 or 30 years to cause trouble in this world. So I'm going to hang out for a bit. Not trouble, it could cause trouble, but to know that there is a reason, and me being the person, if you can tell me something that I understand and the reason for it, I'll go with it. But if you're telling me something that makes no sense, nah, I don't think so. So it just made sense, David. It
Yeah.
just made sense, and it gave me a lot of comfort, as I said. It just, the sadness of loss, it can only be felt if you've loved. So to be in that loving environment and come to this earth where there is so much, and I am loved. I do know I'm loved by people that are important to me. And the love of that within the spirit world is just so intense. It is so fulfilling. I just, it's so hard to describe it unless you've been there. And I know we all have been there and we will return to it. But in this life, I mean, there'd be no wars, there'd be no arguments, there'd be nothing if everybody fully understood that. But that then there would be no purpose for us to be on this earth to learn.
Speaking of purpose, there was this wonderful scene in which there's this giant diamond and you're chipping off little pieces of it, and it's your job to give people a little bit of diamond, which I think was their light to help
Yeah.
them on their soul journey as a human. And, I think it was such a beautiful metaphor. And, I don't know, is it real? Is that my job? Probably, but the metaphor was you were here to bring light to people. And I
Yeah.
love that. Tell me about that sensation. Oh, and then I can't forget. You go, it's funny. I have this tattoo called diadem, which means princess, and it kind of goes together. And then you say something so funny. Well, it's not a brilliant tattoo, but I suppose it'll work. You're so funny. So I love that synchronicity between, this soul mission that you have to bring light to people, and you actually have a physical tattoo on your arm. Tell me all about
Yeah.
that.
Well, my spiritual name, I was given, it was a naming ceremony. I'm a spiritualist. So they have naming ceremonies where the person naming you will connect with the spirit world and forward a name. And it is Diadem, which is here on my arm. And it's funny because I got that for my 50th birthday, long before any of this, to remember who I am. That's who you are. Isn't that interesting? Yes. So that's who I am. I'm going to label myself so if I ever forget. So it's very interesting of the synchronicity of all that. So I can still see in my mind's eye this big diamond. It's dark. Well, not dark as in black, but it's so dense and so huge. And it's not like a task. And each little chip was in the soul of everyone born to this earth. Now, in my human mind, David, that's a task huge. You think of all the millions and billions of people, but somehow it must work from spirit side. In some way, that enlightenment or light is embedded in each of us. And their journey is to find it and locate it and see it. So because we forget. I mean, I'm sure you've forgotten, and as we move into our years, we'll forget even more. But to know who you are truly and live to that is enlightening. That's the light of us.
Yeah, that was so beautiful. Thanks for sharing that whole scene and giving us the idea that we all have a reason, we have a purpose, we're here for something. And I just love that you got to experience that.
Yeah,
Now,
it was brilliant. Yeah.
one of my favorite parts is next you go to this yellow planet and you're like, ooh,
Ah, Jesus,
I don't
that
like this.
bloody planet.
So I'm leaning in. I'm over in the back of the room and I'm taking notes. I'm like, okay, what's going to happen next? Because, oh, this is exciting. And, I want people to know there's no production of this. This is authentic. Everything that comes up is just a natural thing. So I'm like, what's going to
Yeah,
happen next? And then you go, oh, no. And Trina's like, tell me, what do you think? You're like, no, what? I just see this yellow mountain, this yellow dirt, this yellow planet. You're like, and from the get-go, you hated this place. And then you go through
yes,
the series, you see your mom, she's checking on you. You see her, she's like, when you get out of school, she's waiting for you. And Trina's like, what's that about? She's like, yeah, she doesn't want me to escape. And you just couldn't wait. And then there's something about the planet wasn't finished and you had to count and do something with numbers and it was cold. You hated everything about this experience.
every second of that. Couldn't wait to get away from that planet. I swear to God. And it's really interesting because all my life I have not liked the color yellow. Isn't it? And again, that's uncanny, isn't it? So and I can hear myself talking, and I'm very aware that people will say, "Well, that's subconsciously in you," and I said, "Well, yeah, well, yeah, it is." But if I've come to the world disliking yellow, that memory of that awful curse word planet is with me, and it was horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
And you know what I've done? I've tried to like yellow. I said, I'll try and like yellow. And then I went, no, no, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. It was the feeling was the planet wasn't finished. My vision, it wasn't like any human form. They were like kind of cartoony, metally kind of things. It was cold. it was the electric, and I have my hair as well, so it was out there, and it just wasn't nice. I just didn't like it. Why I had to go there was to assist in the evolution of it. But I know that I took myself in that lifetime, I took myself off that planet. I did, because I squashed myself up like an accordion closing. I went, I'm done. I'm done. It was awful. I didn't. If it is seen as a failure by the spirit side of life, which nothing is a failure on the spirit side of life, I failed big time on that one.
What
Wasn't having it.
Well, later you go and you speak with your guides, and Trina says, what was up with the yellow planet? And they're like, well, it wasn't finished, and she was there to help with evolution. And she could have done more, but her purpose was served there. There was no wrongdoing. You weren't, nobody
Yeah,
yelled at you. There wasn't a
no,
failure or anything.
yeah,
And what I took from that is we're going to be in situations we don't like. And maybe we're there to help someone else. And ultimately, if we're just like, I'm so sorry, but I can't do this anymore. We can just be like, I'm out. I have to go,
yeah,
because self-care is healthcare. And if you're in a space where you're supposed to help someone, but it's ultimately to a detriment for you, maybe you're just not at a point to be able to go through that. And I thought, well, what a great analogy in that regard.
and because we do, don't we? We hang on to things, we overthink things, we do that. So that was another lesson to me to just let go, just let go.
Yeah.
Don't hang on to that. Doesn't mean I'm not pointing the finger at myself and saying I've perfected myself, because I certainly haven't. But again, it's these insights that go, oh, I won't do that anymore because it serves no purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, after that experience, there was some comedy there, but then you go, oh, I'm leaving the planet. Now I'm like, I'm in outer space. I'm floating around, and you're like, oh, I went to the naughty corner of the universe. And you made it very clear it wasn't punishment. It was just a time of reflection.
Yeah.
You're so funny, and so I love the comedy as well. And so you were just like, oh, it's the naughty corner, but you were very clear to make sure people knew it was a space for me to look back and reflect and learn from that
Yes.
space. Give some presence to that.
I loved it. I like my own company. I do. Now, I've learned to like my own company. I must say that in a different way. When I was in that space, and I did laugh because, oh, I'm in the naughty corner, because I would have that expectation. But I felt very comforted. I felt very at peace, and lovely time to reflect on that journey and what learnings could be brought and what improvements could be made. And I was almost going to say, if I ever went back, well, I will refuse. I will not go back to that planet. Not yet. For sure.
I loved the next space that you go into in that reflective place as you go with your guides and you're like, oh, this is so loving. It's this beautiful energy. And you had a time where you were able to see your true essence. And actually, a spiritual name came up, a vibration, a sound. So I want you to do me a favor. I want to say that name, and I want you to do me a favor and tell me how it feels. Close your eyes and just put your hand on your heart, and when I say your name, tell me how that feels. Shariah.
My heart beat just a little bit faster. Can I tell you that?
Mm.
Um, it it is interesting because I know when this name came up, I went and researched. I go and research. I go, well, I haven't made that up, and it came back as a real name. It felt, because I'm known as Susan, it's hard to be called by a different name. But my heart tum-tummed when you said it. It did
Mm.
tum-tum. So in me, I know that's me. It has that vibration, as you said.
Yeah, in Dr. Michael Newton's work in Journey of Souls, he talks about the spiritual essence of who we really are as a spiritual being. And a lot of times we'll get that spiritual name, even though we're identified, I'm playing the character David in this lifetime. Maybe there's other lifetimes with other names and other characters, but we have this true essence. And that's one of the fascinating things about a life between lives journey is that you get to be connected with that true spiritual essence. And I just think
Yes.
that's such a beautiful space for you to be able to have this meaning, this name, this vibration, this sound. It's just, I think that's so powerful.
whether or not names are used in the way we humans use them, everything is on a vibrational code on the other side. So it won't be someone calling out my name, it'll be somebody tuning into the vibrations and saying it's very fascinating. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't long after that where you're back with your guides, and this tall, powerful, strong being kind of has an Egyptian look, places, was it a crown? Places a crown on your head and says,
Did.
don't forget who you are. And I was like, wow, you are a strong, powerful spiritual being that chose this journey. Don't forget who you are. Tell me all about that.
Wow, wow, you're really putting it back in my mind. That is so clear to me as you've mentioned that. The crown was black woven metal, kind of very light. It wasn't heavy, and it was interesting. And look, I don't want people to think I'm uppity or anything. I am a princess. I really don't want that occurring. But that name has followed me. When I taught online, in the staff room, we'd call each other's names. Like one was Empress, one was Queen, and I was Princess. And we're going back like 20 years. This name, spiritual name, is Princess's Crown. Do you see? So it has followed me. So again, is it subconscious? Is it not? It doesn't matter. If it is subconscious, that's part of us. And I felt a bit like a warrior. That's what I felt, a bit like a warrior. And it was like a very loving father placing that crown on my head, saying, you need to remember this. So it was phenomenal. And it was quick, as you know. It was just, okay, I can do this. When someone gives you encouragement if you're running a marathon, not that I ever have, but I presume just at the end when you're exhausted and people are applauding and say, come on, you can do it. That's what that did to me.
Yeah.
That's what that moment, it reminded me I still have plenty of air in me to keep going.
Yeah, I loved how you met with Jane, and Jane's like, "Yeah, I don't really want you to go back and have another one. I think you learned everything." And you're like, "No, no, no. I'm going to go back. I don't know that I've learned it enough. I want to really make sure. And this time, I'm going to choose a lot of challenges in my next journey." And you were correlating that with your true essence. Don't forget who you are.
Yeah.
And also remember how strong and powerful you are. And the life you've chosen with all of its obstacles are things that you put in your life to inform you and to create an experience, to learn and explore and experience and have an experience of being a human. So tell me all
Yeah.
about that.
It again, and remember, none of this, when I word it, because it's the human words, none of this was against me. But Jane was saying, well, I told you so. I told you so. I told you not to. Do you know, there was no need for it. And of course I went for it because I am that warrior. And so it was interesting. Look, my life has not been terrible. It has not. On reflection, with the strength I have now, the time it was absolutely blooming awful. Some of the things that occurred. And, people say, oh, but that's worse has happened to another person. But relatively speaking, we all have to deal with it, with what we have inside. So I kind of would have said to Jane, well, I needed to experience it. And in this life, I say, try something once. If you don't like it, don't do it again. And if you do like it, well, then do it again. And so that's perhaps what me as Soraya or that spirit person was saying, well, I need to do this again because I must enjoy brutality. I must enjoy going through pain. Don't anyone inflict that on me. Thank you. But do you see what I mean? It's like I want to know it deeper. If I'm going to learn something, I want to really learn it, not just skim over it. And that is how I am in this. If I'm really invested and interested, I'm fully focused. So I feel that perhaps Jane was saying to me, look, take a break, get a holiday, go to Bermuda. I know, but I didn't. I chose this. So for whatever reason, I did choose it. And I know you mentioned Michael Newton, and sometimes people come back, as a father if they've abused a child, or as a someone who is a recipient of bad treatment because they were at another lifetime the person inflicting it. So I kind of going, well, that's okay. That's okay. And I look back over my own life and I said, God, I must have been a right shit at some point somewhere. Oh, sorry. But isn't that all part of growth? The people do terrible things, and if they can't reflect on it in a holistic way, a wholesome way, well, then they're forever tarried with it, aren't they? It's forever. So I would be hopeful not to be returning too fast to my next lifetime, because I feel I have learned a huge amount of it. I'm 60 now, so I feel I've learned a huge amount in my lifetime, but specifically so in this last year. Specifically so in this last year, it's just been quite mind blowing because I needed to learn how to relax and be me and not be worried about other people reflecting on who I am. And so that session, it just completely, not completely changed me, but it allowed me to be me. And so knowing my friend Jane is there, my friend, what better company than your friend in life? What better company? Because no matter what you do, they have your back.
Oh, that is so good. And part of your session was you're here to speak the truth and to bring the truth. And that really
Mm.
directly correlates with the work you do in the world. Now, I know you're a powerful psychic medium and you receive information that you share with your clients. Tell us all about you and your business and your process. Tell us everything.
When I was 17 or 18, I fell pregnant with my first child and in Ireland, unmarried, horror. However, and all through that, I was going, is this what life is all about? This cannot be it. So that started my journey into seeking this more information that I felt I knew but didn't know. So that's when my journey of finding out information on how the world works. How do I know stuff is happening when other people, it seemed like common sense to me. So then I went on, got married, and had my family. And then in my 30s, I started studying again because I knew I was a good psychic, but I didn't know I was a medium. And I discovered that through an online thing, which is a really good teaching site that's no longer there. And like I said, I was never overly confident in my abilities because I was a very shy child. So I was never, and I'm Irish, a few issues in the family. And so you daren't speak up about how great you are. So I went on studying and I felt I'd found my niche. I felt I found it because I said, if I can see this, and if I can see that the real truth of something, because I am a truth seeker and I have definite beliefs in justice and how justice will come about anyway, whether you see it or not. When you have a realization that you can see more than can be seen, you want to help someone. You can't make them take the information. You can only offer the information. Anything that is seen or pertains to a future is potential because your soul and your encased in this human of you needs to make that decision for yourself. So I'm very clear on that. And then when it comes to the mediumship side of things, I love my father very, very dearly, and he's gone nearly 20 years now to the other side. And I miss him terribly. I really do. So even though I know of the other world, I still miss that human touch. So when someone comes to me and they want to speak to their brother, sister, father, I will connect with that other world. Remember, I've trained for many, many years to do that and change those vibrations and bring forward as much information to bring solace and peace to the person who's saying, is me daddy okay? Is me daddy okay? Because I know I knew my father was okay, but if I hadn't, I would be asking, is me daddy okay? Where is he? Is he just gone? Now it's interesting because some people don't believe in the afterlife or believe in a God source or anything like that. It's not my job to change them. It's not my job to change them. All I'll do is what I do, and you take it or you leave it. And it's a beautiful thing. And I know sometimes people come to me, David, and they're afraid. They're a bit afraid. And I said, well, what are you afraid of? Oh, if you say something that bad is going to happen. I said, well, I'm going to tell you now, something bad will happen if you think it. It's perspective, you know, and I don't do that. I work definitely from the positive, and I am perhaps stupidly sometimes an optimist. So a bit blind, but I do work in the real world. I do work in the real world with the real situations and real feelings. And it doesn't matter what the problem is. To you, the problem would be this size, and to another, it's just overtaking their life. So it's again, it's all perspective. So yeah, I love to do that with my clients. Does it work all the time? No. No, it doesn't because it nearly always does. Just as you nearly always does, but sometimes it doesn't because we're not in the right space. You know, I guarantee you've walked into a room or you've met someone and you just went, "Oh, I don't like them," and because your vibrations can't match. It's not a challenge for you to go and make them match. You just go, "I accept that." People coming looking for more and they're looking to me, a stranger. And I'm saying, well, I'll help you look to you who knows yourself better. But that's the soul, that's the psychic. Mediumship is different. So that's what I endeavor to do. That's what I try to do. And I'm still training. And so I have a lot of accomplishments, a lot of certificates, all of that. They don't mean a damn. They don't mean a damn if you're not in it, if you're not coming from that soul space. And I've seen it myself, people, and it doesn't matter what they are, whether they're mediums or psychics or doing another line of business. If you're not working from your soul, you're not being true. Don't tell me a lie, because I won't forget that. I'll let you away with it once. You do it twice. No, 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 no.
So if someone wants to get a hold of you, what's your website? What's your process? How does your business process work with people?
If anyone wanted to reach out and contact me, susanhughesmedium.com. So people can look me up and all the details are on my website where they can click into that. It's a joy for me to do what I do. It is an absolute joy. You know, and I say this lovingly. The best part about my job is people. The worst part of my job is people. Because I know certain things when people say to me, I'm lost, I don't know. And I say, well, you've disconnected. You need to reconnect with yourself and listen to that gut, teaching people to really connect with that divine space, that soul of them. So to encourage them to bring more fulfillment to their life. And I say to people, I don't make up stuff. If I don't see it or sense it or feel it, I will not say it because I would dislike someone doing that to me, you know, just to plamass me. That's an Irish word. It's insincerity. It means don't be plamassing me. Don't be so insincere. So I bring my sincerity to my work and my beliefs.
And if someone were to ask you about Trina Sheeran and whether or not they should work with her, what would you say?
Oh, she's brilliant. Girls, men, anyone. She changed my life. Now, I know Trina a number of years, and she was always trying to get her hands into me to get me to do sessions with her because she knew I was a bit messed up from things that had occurred in my life. And of course, that me being stubborn would say, no, no, I'll keep going forward. But she did, and I went and she did a few sessions, not the Life Between Lives ones. She changed my life. That's what I'm going to say. Now, she gave me the tools for me to change my life. That's a better way of saying it, I think. She can't. I can't change yours, etc., etc. I recommend her 1,000%. And I trust no one, David. I trust no one. And I trust Trina. I trust you. No, I'm not saying I don't. I
Well,
trust Trina.
I don't want to be on your
But
bad side, that's for sure.
yeah, but you see, I just look at people and I go, well, are they making me feel ick?
Yeah.
And is are they making me feel ick? Is there a reason? Or are they just being mean? You
Yeah.
know, so it's very childish of me, but it doesn't matter because we're all children.
Well, I love you so much. I'm so grateful that you
Thank you.
shared your journey with this Life Between Lives hypnotherapy, and it was just so beautiful. After that session, we were all like, whew, that was a lot. I remember we went out, we had some dinner, we had a glass of
We did.
wine, And you're a character. I love how authentic and how real you are. And I
Oh,
video
thank you.
chatted my brother. I'm like, oh, you got to hear it. And so I had to send him a message. It was very colorful to say the least. And he sent me
Now
a message.
you
He's like,
asked and I
who's this lady?
supplied.
Well, this lady's what? And I said, this is my friend Susan. She's playing. She's so wonderful. And then we had this fun conversation. I just love your authenticity. I love how you just bring a realness about you, and you're the real deal, my friend. I really like you a
Oh,
lot.
oh, thank you, David. I'm married, so you know.
Man, am I glad because you're a handful, baby.
Actually, you're right. You're right. Now, I'm not needy and I'm not high maintenance, but there is a level of maintenance needed for everyone.
Well,
Tell your bro I said hello. He's a good looking dude.
that's so fun. Well, I appreciate so much that you were willing to come on and share with us. If there was one thing you want to make sure people know before we close out today, what would that be?
Don't be afraid to live. And if you are, go ask questions of someone like Trina or someone like myself, or to find that little link that will help you bring fulfillment, bring that sense of peace at whatever level you can attain. This life is very difficult, beautiful as well, but very difficult at times. Be with yourself, be who you are, and don't be afraid to live.
Beautifully said, my friend. Thank you so much.
You're
And to
welcome.
you, I say, namaste.